Shalom Israel. Before I start, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Wahara Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles in Israel, who rule and teach well, Akims and the Ives and Bibles, and those pushing videos in truth and sincerity, brothers and sisters in the truth. Once again, when it comes to who are the Lord's people, like if we say we're Africans, we're Ishmaelites, we're Chinese, we're Moabites, no one really have issue with that. But when we say we're the Lord's people, then all of a sudden, people will have issue with that. And I was watching this video here. What made me watch it? I just saw the title says Israel and the end time and the end time. So I just wanted to hear what he said, and I'm just gonna play about just coming up to 4 minutes. Like I said, when it comes to who the Lord's people are today, the real people ain't known. They're only those who are claiming to be the people. Those are who is deemed to be the people of the book. Let me quickly read this. This is we're a hidden people. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 9, it says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty. Now at this time Yahushua was speaking to the Israelites back then. It says, but thou art rich. And this is speaking to us today as well. Yeah, like we're going through tribulation and poverty. Yeah, but it says, but thou art rich, because the promises, the blessings, all of that belongs to us. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews. Now, back then, they had people like Herod, who were quote unquote the king of the Jews, but he was an Edomite. Yeah, it says, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, by the synagogue of Satan. And it's the same thing today. You have those that saying they're JWOs. I should have said that. Today, but the scripture says, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are JWOs and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So just want to play a bit of this clip here, a bit of this video. Because like I said, when it comes to who the Lord's people are, there are hidden people today.
But we start to move now into the latter sections of the book of Ezekiel, which deal primarily with prophetic events. Ezekiel is writing, in the mid 6th century BC, but God is showing him distant things. And some of the things that Ezekiel writes about have been fulfilled, if you're old enough, in some of your lifetimes. And there are some things that he writes about that have yet to be fulfilled. In other words, some of the things that Ezekiel prophesied 2,500 years ago concerning end time events went unfulfilled until relatively recently. And some things he writes about are still in our future. Now, in order to understand the prophetic end time events that Ezekiel writes about, one must first understand the unique role that the nation of Israel has played in history and will play in prophecy. Helpful to us is the fact that Ezekiel, in these latter chapters here, when he's talking about end time events, he writes in chronological order. So we can see things that are going to unfold and have unfolded, if you're old enough, in some of your lifetimes, and things that are yet to unfold. So starting at the end of the book, I'm going to just lay out in 3 main sections the remainder of the book of Ezekiel. So Ezekiel's end time prophecies, the last part of his book, chapters 40 to 48, he writes about the kingdom age, also known as the millennial kingdom. It's the 1,000-year reign of Christ from Jerusalem after he returns to the earth. How many of you know and are looking forward to the second coming of Christ, right? So he's coming again. And the Bible says that when he comes again and he establishes his kingdom on earth, it'll be for 1,000 years. Then there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Well, Ezekiel details the millennial temple that will be built. And he also describes life during that 1,000-year when Christ reigns from Jerusalem on the earth. But before that happens, Ezekiel writes in chapters 38 and 39 about the climactic battle of the nations against Israel, better known as the Battle of Armageddon. So we'll talk about that when we get later into chapters 38 and 39. But before that happens, the main topic of our study today has to deal with the restoration of the nation of Israel, because ever since the Babylonians besieged and destroyed Jerusalem in 586 BC, and this is the time in which Ezekiel is writing, ever since the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC, for the next 2,500 years, for all intents and purposes, that Israel as a nation no longer exists. They are dominated by some other foreign power, and the Jews have been dispersed really around the world from 586 BC until 1948 AD. The Jewish people had no exclusive homeland, no government, not even a common language. Because when the Jews were taken captive into Babylon,
and that's the point I wanted to pick up on, you know, trying to say that the people of the book, you know, went back into the land in 1948, and that's meant to be some kind of a Bible prophecy. But we want to look at the scriptures and see what the scriptures have to say around that. Now, when you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, it goes into blessings and curses that, you know, would happen to the Israelites if they obey or if they don't obey. Now, verse 15 lets you know that, you know, if they don't keep the commandments, curses would follow them. When you read Daniel 9 and 11, it lets you know that the curses are upon them. So this is Deuteronomy 28:45. It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they, meaning the curses, shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So when we look at the Israelites today, we should be able to go through the curses and see that these people are still under these curses, because it says it's going to be upon them for a sign, for a wonder, and upon their seed, meaning it's a generational curse. I just brought that out. Let me quickly go to the actual scriptures. This is Daniel 9. Yeah. The Israelites are currently under the curses of Deuteronomy. This is Daniel 9 and 11. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us. Which curse? The oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of the Most High, because we have sinned. So when we go back to that curse, one of the curses that they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder. A sign is how we identify the Israelites today. It says, and upon thy seed forever. So it's a generational curse. These people are still under these curses. Now, when will those curses be removed? It is Revelation 22:1, and he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of the Most High, of the Lamb. And in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life. So this is talking about the kingdom, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And there shall be no more curse. Yeah. So when we're in the kingdom, when the kingdom is here, that's when there'll be no more curse. But the throne of the Most High and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servant shall serve him. So, you know, he's saying in 1948, this is when the Israelites went back into the land. But there's no prophecy saying that. What does the prophecy say? Let me come here first. This is Ezekiel chapter 36, and I'll start at, let's read at 23. It says, and I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, saith the Lord power, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes. I will take you from among the heathen. Yeah, so he's going to take us out from among these other nations, and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. Yeah, so the Lord is going to be the one that's going to take us out from all these other countries where we've been scattered, yeah, and bring us into our own land. And it tells you, Deuteronomy 4:27, and the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether the Lord shall lead you. Yeah, it didn't say anything about Balfour Treaty or man putting us back in that land, and all the tribes will be back in the land. Now, this is what he was talking about. It says, okay, the Balfour Treaty or Balfour Declaration. Let me click on this quickly. It says the Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewess people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region with a small minority Jewess population. Yeah, it says the declaration was contained in a letter dated 2nd of November 1917 from the United Kingdom. Now, doesn't say anything here like the Lord had anything to do with this. When we go back to Ezekiel, it says, for I will, Ezekiel 36:24, is for I, yeah, meaning the Lord, will take you from among the heathen. Why? Because he scattered us amongst them, and gather you out of all countries, yeah, all 12 tribes, and will bring you into your own land. Yeah, so man ain't going to be giving us our own land. Now, this is Luke 21:20. It says, and when ye shall, so this is Yahushua now, yeah, prophesying. It says, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. So this is going back to 70 AD, yeah, when we got kicked out of the land by the Romans. And this is how we ended up into further parts of Africa, over going to the west coast of Africa, etc. It says, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. Who's going to fall by the edge of the sword? The Israelites. Yeah, that's what was happening to us, We ended up being gladiators, was taken as slaves, and shall be led away captives into all nations. Now, there's no history that I can think of, and stand to be corrected, where you can see that the JWOs were led away captive into all nations. You can see of them being captives under the Germans, which, technically they are the same race of people. They're just different tribes. It says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captives into all nations. Yeah, just like the prophecy says, this is why Yahushua is going to come back and gather us from all countries. Yeah. It says Luke 21:24, and they shall be led, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So this is who is in the land today. Yeah, not the people of the book, but Gentiles. Yeah, claiming to be the people of the book. And that goes back to what we read in Revelation chapter 2 and verse 9. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are JWOs and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Yeah, that's who's in the land today, possessing the land, claiming to be the people of the book. And the real people of the book are hidden. When you try and teach them that they are these people, you go through the prophecies, etc., it's hard for them to even grasp it at times. Now, go back here quickly. So it says here, okay. Yeah, what was Israel before? So I wanted, I lost where I was. Oh, is how did Israel became a nation in 1948? Well, it was always a nation. Yeah, we're just now a divided nation, scattered all around the globe for our disobedience. Because remember, it says these curses are going to be upon us as a sign and as a wonder. When you go through the curses going into slavery on ships, having yokes of iron around your necks, you can't find that in these people's history. It says there, on May 14, 1948, in Tel Aviv, JWish Agency Chairman David proclaims the State of Israel, establishing the first JWish state in 2,000 years. At midnight, the State of Israel officially came into being upon termination of the British mandate in Palestine. So it says they became a state. Yeah. So a state. Yeah. Yeah. When you look at number 2, it says a nation or territory considered as an organized political community under one government. But how can they become a nation when we're already a nation? Yeah, the purpose of Yahweh Shai, because we're a divided nation. We're split into two kingdoms. So Ezekiel 37. Purpose of Yahweh Shai is to bring us back together as one. This is Ezekiel 37. And it says this all throughout the scriptures, man. Ezekiel 37:21, and say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. Yeah, so that's how we're going to get into the land. And we come to go back to the curses. This is verse 64, Deuteronomy 28:64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. There thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. This is how we ended up, being scattered amongst the nations for disobeying the Most High. But who's going to put us back in the land? Ezekiel 37:21, and say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and we gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. So the Lord is going to put us back in the land, not no Balfour Declaration. Says that's at midnight. That's when we became a state. Yeah, proclaims the state of Israel, establishing the first JWish state in 2,000 years. No, 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 no. It says, and I will make them one nation. Why is it saying one nation? Because after King Solomon, the kingdom split into two. We became two kingdoms and two nations. Yeah? And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. So we'll be back in the land, all 12. And one king shall be king to them all. And they shall be no more two nations. Yeah. Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore. So it says, neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, or with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. So we won't be sinning when we're in the land. Yeah. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places, yeah, where we've been scattered. wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their power. And us being cleansed is us being under that new covenant, so that we don't transgress the laws anymore. Yeah. What happened in 1948 does not seem to fit the bill. Yeah. So when he's talking about, prophecy, it is going off. Drop this back a bit.
World from 586 BC until 1948 AD. The Jewish people had no exclusive homeland, no government, not even a common language.
And they're still in that state today. Why? This is why they're still in that state today. Go back here. Deuteronomy 28 and 46. And they, the curses, shall be upon thee for a sign, yes, so that we know who the real people are, and for wonder, and upon thy seed forever. This is very important. So even down to today, 2021, January 2021, yeah, the Lord's people are still under these curses. Now, this is Joel chapter 3. So let's see some of the curses. This is Joel 3 and 1. It says, for behold, in those days, the latter days, and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. So this is letting you know that the Israelites are going to be captives. They're going to be in captivity. And, we might have certain freedoms today, but we're being ruled over by another nation of people. What did he say here just a while ago? How they didn't have what?
World from 586 BC until 1948 AD.
We can extend that to 2021. Yeah, they're still in this condition.
The Jewish people had no exclusive homeland.
Still the same today.
No government.
Still the same today.
Not even a common language.
And that's literally the same today. Yeah, nothing can't change. It's just attributing it to the wrong people. So we'll go back to Joel 3 and 1. It says, for behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. So these people will be captives. I will also gather all nations. I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. Yeah, you hear this all over the scripture, that we're a scattered people, and parted my land. Who's it parted with? Who's parted the land? I'll come back to that. It says, and they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, now, that they might drink. Now, when you look at our history, this is what happened to our people. Yeah, we're captives. Our boys were sold for harlots, breeding blocks, and our sisters for wine. It says, yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon? All the coasts of Palestine, will ye render me a recompense? And if ye will recompense me swiftly and speedily, would I return your recompense upon your own head? Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, Edomites. So where in their history were they sold to Edomites? Yeah, they were actually in captives by Edomites themselves. Yeah, the Germans, that he might remove them far from their border. So we're not in the land. This is an article. It says slavery under JWOs. Almost as soon as it appeared in 1991, the secret relationship generated a controversy that centered more on its intentions than its scholarship. Says a review of the secret relationship between blacks and JWOs, volume 1. Says the noise level was heightened in 1993 by the turmoil that swirled around Professor Tony Martin of Wellesley College, a tenured professor in Wellesley Department of Africana Studies. Martin assigned to one of his class portions of the book, which singles out JWOs for special prominence in the Atlantic slave trade, which they don't really want to acknowledge, and for having played a particular prominent role in the enslavement of Africans in the Americas. Yeah, a lot of that history is hidden. He was accused of anti-Semitism and wrote a brief book to refute the changes. The title of Martin's book, J.W.'s Onslaught, Dispatches from the Wellesley Battlefront, gave a clear preview of his opinion. It says it was a mixture of discussion, factual refutation, and angry recrimination. This last predominated with paragraphs that opened using language like to the JWOs and to their favorite Negroes who have insisted on attacking me, I say. Yeah. So it shows that these people had a part to play in what's known as the transatlantic slave trade. And when you look at their history, like the scripture speaks about how did we actually, what was our modem of transport during this? Yeah, it was ships. When you go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28, yeah, these curses, and verse 68 says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt. Now, Egypt, you read Deuteronomy 5 and 6, Exodus 20 and 2, is making reference to house of bondage, yeah, or another word is slavery. It says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, the house of bondage or slavery, again with ships. Yeah, that was our mode of transport. They got to the land on train. Yeah. Now, this is another article. What's this? That's the content of slavery. Okay. All right. Says here, what U.S. slavery reparations and post-Holocaust Germany have in common. This was a good look at read. This was. Says the idea of paying reparations for slavery is gaining momentum in the United States, and this was August the 2nd, 2 years ago, 2019. Despite being long derided as an unrealistic plan, and it is really because if I could remember what the article was called, but they did a survey on the Americans, and I think it was 63% didn't believe that those that were slaves should have received any reparations, which they didn't anyway, and 94% today didn't believe that the descendants of those slaves should receive any reparation. It said the idea of paying reparations for slavery is gaining momentum in the United States, despite being long derided as an unrealistic plan to compensate for state violence committed by and against people long dead. It says the topic saw substantive debate in the July 30 Democratic primary debate, with candidate Marianne Williamson calling slavery a debt that is owed. Some Democratic congressional representatives are also pushing for financial compensation for the descendants of enslaved people. Now, our people have been crying out for reparations for as long as I can remember, and we've never gotten any closer to getting any reparations. So calls for reparations. There's calls for reparation in the US are generally met with skepticism. What would reparations achieve? Yeah, so why should we give them anything? What is it going to achieve? Who should receive them and under what conditions? Now, farce of that is over there in the UK, when the slaves were quote unquote freed, the slave masters were given reparations for loss of their property to the tune of, I think it was £20 million. yeah, which at that time amounted to about 40% of the national budget. Now you find out that in 2015 is when they stopped paying that reparation. Well, they finish paying off that reparation. So I'd like to know who from the time slavery, quote unquote, ended was alive today to be receiving any reparation. Yeah, so that means they had no problem paying the descendants of these people. So when it says who should receive them, like it's a joke, and under what conditions? It says other countries have tackled these questions. In 1995, South Africa established its Truth and Reconciliation Commission and paid reparations to the victims of apartheid. 8 years before, the United States apologized to 82,000 Japanese Americans unduly imprisoned during World War II and paid them 20 grand each to compensate for their suffering. Even Germany, birthplace of the worst racism ever institutionalized. Oh, come on. It's like what we went through was nothing. Yeah. All those hundreds of years compared to about the 5 year stint that happened here, in-house beef between Esau and Esau. That's deemed the worst racism ever institutionalized and elevated to official policy as some lessons for the United States as it considers reparations. It says compensating victims of Nazi enslavement. I am a professor of political science who studies the relationship between democracy, citizenship, and justice. This is a strange word today. It says my recent work on Germany examines how the country dealt with the horrors of the Holocaust. So this is what they're calling worst ever racism institutionalized, yeah? Which that means what we went through wasn't the worst. It was nothing. Child's play. It says Nazi Germany not only killed millions of Jews between 1933 and 1945, it also forced over 20 million people into slave labor, working them to their death in German industries. Yeah. By 1944, a quarter of the German workforce was enslaved laborers. So these were the Jewish people. It says Slovakia. After Hitler's defeat in World War II, the newly democratic government of West Germany knew it had to face the evils of the past. So why aren't their feet like these other Edomites facing the evil of their past when it comes to our people? Like the evils that was perpetrated upon us seems to go under the carpet. Nazi industries that use slave labor, such as the steel and artillery producer crop, were dismantled. High-ranking crop CEOs were judged war criminals at the Nuremberg trials and imprisoned. So, what happened to the JWOs under the Germans? Yeah, that was deemed evil enough for them to criminalize those who did it, yeah, or those who are probably profiting from what happened. It says pressure by Israeli leaders David and Chain, German Chancellor Konrad agreed to pay 3 billion German marks in reparations to Israel between 1953 and 67. So, for the short stint of racism and institutionalization that they went through, yeah, and I say short stint because compared to what we went through, it is a short stint. They were paid 3 billion German marks in reparation. Germany also paid 450 million German marks to the World JWOish Congress, an international federation of JWOish communities and organizations. Says, assuming the mid-century rate of 4 German marks to $1, that's the equivalent today of 7 billion for Israel and 1 billion for the JWOish Congress. But when we ask for it, it's like, oh, no, that was in the past. You were never slaves. They go back to that old drama of what is it up here? What is it they put up here? When we ask for reparation, there's a question as to who should get it. Yeah, who should receive them? Anyway, this is let's look here. Isaiah 63, 65. Give me a second. Yeah, Isaiah 65 and 1 says, I am sought of them that asked not for me, I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me unto a nation that was not called by my name. Where's it? Look here. Where's says, look here, Israel. I've got the precept on it. Isaiah 65 and 15 says, and ye shall leave your name for a curse unto my chosen. Yeah. For the Lord power shall slay thee and call his servants by another name. So now we're no longer being called Israel. We're being called African Americans, West Africans, Caribbeans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, all kinds of cans, apart from Israelites. Yeah. This is how, when you go through the scriptures, it lets you know who the Lord's people are, because we have to keep this in mind. Deuteronomy 28 and 46. And they, the curses shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, upon thy seed forever. And these curses will only be removed when the kingdom is here. Yeah. Revelation 22 and 3. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of the Most High and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve them. That's not here at the moment. Yeah. Now, this is Isaiah. This is how we also know who's in the land. Yeah, this is Isaiah, and I'll start at chapter 2, verse 1. Verse 2, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountains of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. Yeah. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his path. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. So when we're back in the kingdom, all nations is going to be keeping our laws. But what else? And he shall judge among the nations, Yahushai, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Now, I'm sure that's not the case over there in the land. They're warring against the Palestinians. They're always flying rockets against each other. Let me see. Please. Israeli conflict. Just a second. We've got Israeli-Palestinian conflict. War history conflicts, and that's what this says. Remember, the scripture says they should not learn war anymore. Says Arab-Israeli wars, series of military conflicts between Israeli forces and various Arab forces, most notably in 48, 49, 56, 67, 73, 82, 2006. Yeah, so much for them not learning war anymore, as the scripture says. This is Isaiah 2, verse 4 again. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their plowshares, their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. That's not what's happening in the world today. There's still wars going around. Neither shall they learn war anymore. Yeah. So when you look at who's actually in the land, you know, the people, the real people of the book are not in the land. Yeah. And that's going by prophecy. Yeah. Which, you know, why a lot of people don't really deal with prophecy today, because when you do, it exposes a lot of the lies that's been told. This is Deuteronomy 9. Yeah. The reason why a lot of these so-called pastors get these things wrong as well. One, the Lord ain't with them. And two, to Deuteronomy this is mad. This is Deuteronomy yeah, I'll start 25 actually. Didn't mean to read that. It says, then men shall actually start Deuteronomy 29:24. Even all nations shall say, wherefore as the Lord, yeah, all right. Deuteronomy 29:21. And the Lord shall separate him unto evil out of all the tribes of Israel according to the curses. No, I'll jump down. So the generation to come, Deuteronomy 29:22. Of your children shall rise up after you, that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land shall say, when they see the plagues of that land and the sickness which the Lord laid upon it, and the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that it is not sown nor beareth, nor any grass groweth there, and the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is what's going to happen when you know, as was reading in Joel, you know, when the Lord starts to plead with these nations, says, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath, says, even all nations shall say, wherefore has the Lord done thus unto the land that meaneth to eat of what? Of this great anger. The men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord, power of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. And that's what we've done. 27, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger. Yes, so we're not in the land. And in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land, as it is this day. Yeah, so as it was back then, so it is today, because going back to Deuteronomy 28:46, yeah, these curses shall be upon us for a sign, for wonder, and upon our seed forever. So we are not in that land. Yeah, and the reason why they do not know that, the secret things belong unto the Lord our power. But those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever. Yeah, they're not given the understanding of these scriptures, that we may do all the words of this law. So this is why they will tell you things like, you know, now they're back in the land in 1948. You know, that's not the case. So with that, I give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Wahara Kadash, Kwame Allah.